Love Muay Thai.
We are live, ladies and gents. We are live. We are live. Welcome to the Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. I'm your host, Asher, and our guest today is Mrs. Clare, and she gonna make it abundantly clear how clear she is with her message. And we got Mr. Todd, another awesome brother I met in Florida last weekend. We get to talk today about our story about victories, and you guys get to share. So go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself, there, Todd. Start with you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Asher, for having me on, man. This evening where I am, or late evening, or early evening, late afternoon for some. But hey, my name is Todd Cheek, and out of the Greensboro, North Carolina area. So wherever you're watching from, thank you. But one of the main things I focus on in my life right now is really helping people understand that they have options in life. I really want people to know that they don't have to be a slave to whatever society might throw at us. I am a personal trainer and a weight loss coach, and that's primarily what I do. Is I just want people to understand that they have options when it comes to their health and their wellness. And so I don't want people to be a slave to pharmaceuticals, be a slave to the food marketing efforts. I want people to really have control over their lives, and that's what I do, and that's my mission and vision.
Thank you, Todd, for sharing that. And you know what happened to me just now? I had like a bunch of replay on other things. I was like, it's throwing me off a little bit. But
No,
thank you for introducing yourself. And Claire, we don't mind sharing because you got the powerful voice too, Claire. So tell us a bit about you first. We can.
Yeah, so my name's Clare Williamson, and I actually help spiritual entrepreneurs, healers, visionary coaches um, explode their income and explode their income in a way that they're also really coming into alignment with their true soul's purpose. And my vehicle is magnetism. So I began this journey of very much that whole victim to victory place, realizing that it's a consciousness, right? It's a consciousness of whether we are a reaction to whatever is happening in our world or we become a response. And that began this very deep inner journey for me, where it felt like I was just peeling off layer and layer and layer upon who I truly am. And in that
Mm.
truth, there is this magnetism. And I started to call it the miracle frequency. So I really help people to activate this miracle frequency that starts to draw life to them. And this is so important when you're growing a business, right? Because my story is growing the multi six-figure business and ending up in hustle, ending up in stress, ending up in misery, right? And feeling the bank balance increase, but not see the life experience increase, expand. So I want to help people expand their life experiences, live more into what they love, and get paid for it. And be an influence to those wanting to walk their same paths, right? So that's
Mm.
me in a nutshell.
Thank you all for sharing your short little clip of your life journey, life story. And today, for those who are listening here, because today we get to talk about victories. And we get to navigate a little bit about between Todd's story and Claire's story and my story, a little bit about our victories in our life, because oftentimes people are achieving a lot sometimes, but they don't really see the victory in the story that they already accomplished, the things that they already done in their past. And it's interesting. I was just having a conversation with someone today about their own journey. Like they've accomplished so much, but still don't feel like they're making any meaningful contribution. And sometimes you get to that place in life where you're feeling that way, but still you're victorious because if you look at your past, there's a lot in it to be grateful for, to appreciate the increase the value of it. But sometimes you don't in a place to see that. So we're gonna jump into first victory. We're gonna start with Claire. So Claire, you're gonna share with us a little bit something that people need to know about your life that you consider a victorious moment for you that people might see themselves in.
It's funny, actually. I was invited to write in a book called Victim to Victory because in 2021, I actually, because of where I'd found myself in my business, that hustle, stress, I have three children, and my youngest little girl got quite ill. we found out she had this thing called Epstein-Barr, which is a virus. So her body was fighting off this virus all of the time. And it meant that she would just pick up little things like a cold and it would wind her up in hospital. And so I'm juggling this really busy business. I think I had 15 one-to-one clients at the time. And we'd just gone through COVID. My ex-husband, had spent the entire COVID lockdown off work. And then as soon as the lockdown went away, he went back to work. And I'm like, 15 clients, baby that's unwell. We were in and out of hospital for 2 months and she stopped sleeping. And I think as women tend to do, and as mothers especially, it's just like, I just was surviving. I wasn't opening up and sharing, I'm not coping. And one morning I dropped my children off to their school, daycare. I drove home. I had this massive to-do list, got straight out the car, came inside, and I was literally sat at this desk for about 6 hours. And it wasn't until I went down to my car that I realized that I'd left my dog in there. And it, as you can imagine, broke me because, yeah, I was the cause of taking a life. And it really made me stop and look at everything, right? It made me look at everything. And what was coming up as well was not just what I'd done wrong there in that moment, but also this feeling like I already felt like I was flawed, So it began this deep inner journey of healing a lot of stuff from my childhood. And why I'm bringing this story up is because we all go through these massive, in the moment seems like massive life jerks, right? Whether it's a marriage ending, whether it's losing a partner, whether it's losing a parent, whether it's getting sick, whether it's losing a job, something where it's loss. And we can decide in that moment to be the victim to that situation, or to see that situation as a way forward, actually, through to victory, through to overcoming what's already sitting there. Because that's what I realize in the work that I do with clients. I call myself a business shaman rather than a business coach now, because so much of the work that we're doing is energetic. It is the imprint that you're carrying on the inside of all of these experiences that you've had in life that give you these belief systems, these thoughts that plague you, these identities that aren't yours. And it's not until something happens that chucks you off that roller coaster, right? That you get the opportunity to stop and say, okay, what's actually really going on? Because you're magnetizing whatever you draw in. I know that I created that situation with my dog, and it was a choice. It was a line. It was literally a fork in the road. Do you become the victim to this and allow the grief to kill you, allow the guilt to wrap you up, the shame, or do you see it as an opportunity to actually maybe remove some of the layers that are holding you back from the truth of yourself? And what happened was I completely pivoted my business. I created a business from there that allows me to be the mum of 3 children, now a single mum of 3 children, right? Gave me the life freedom. And also allowed me to bring through, up until that point, I'd been doing so much behind closed doors in my own transformation. I was getting into breath work, I was getting into somatic movement, but none of it was coming through my business. And instead, I was able to just look at my business and change the packaging and do the stuff that lit me up in a way that actually took less time. Everything changed. So from that tragic situation, just actually so much beauty blossomed from there. But I really feel like it's this line, it's this choice, and it's a consciousness, right? And to raise in consciousness, we're starting to believe that actually things do happen through us, right? It's like, actually, this is an opportunity for me to ascend, to evolve.
Wow. When you was talking and you mentioned your dog and you kind of left behind so forth, I heard Todd made a little groan. So I'm thinking that impacted you a certain kind of way, Todd. So could you share what happened for you in that moment when she was sharing about the loss of the dog?
Because I think a lot of times we can empathize and sympathize with people's journeys. And I myself, I love a from a victim to victory story. I love those types because we're it's very possible, and it happens every day. to so many people. And when I hear those types of stories that Claire has been through, and for her to become like this new person, to me, that just like it once again gives hope, you know. And I think a lot of times in society we've lost hope. What I see within a lot of people, they don't have that hope. And so when I hear a story like Claire's, it's like, wow, there is hope. There is a chance that we can become victorious. And so the story just resonated with me in that way, because I love to once again hear those or victorious stories.
So personally for you, what are some of your hope victorious shots that you wanna share with us? Kind of connect with Claire and
What was that again?
what excuse me. So thinking about your own journey, what are some hopeful victorious shots that you want to share about your own journey that can
Well,
connect with Claire for victory?
yeah, and when you said a business shaman, it just like wow, that was really really cool. Once again, that was another thing I've never heard of before, but it makes total sense, because I think there is this spiritual path that if you tap into it, if you realize, if you are aware of it, it you can feel it. And so I remember during a period in my time when I was in just in a dark night of the soul for about 6 months. And this was while I lived in New York City. And I was dating this young lady, and we were I put her in a bad position to where she uh, chose to get an abortion, and so it was a really tough time. And so I'm putting her in this position. I'm living my life in a certain way that's just not who I am. And so one night I fell to my knees and I said, God, I don't know what I'm doing here. Something's wrong. It's like, who am I? So I took a trip down to my hometown here of Greensboro, North Carolina, from New York, just to visit my family. And on my way back up to New York, um, I saw the sun for the first time. And what do I mean by that? The everyday sun that we see every day. This was the first time that I saw it. I was on the Amtrak. I was on the Amtrak riding back up on the train, like I said. And I looked to my side as the sun was either coming up, it was going down, but I noticed how close it was this particular day. It was as if I could reach out and touch it. That's how, close it appeared. But what was more impressive is how powerful this particular, sun was on that particular day, to the point where I started crying. It was like, what is going on here? And I stood up on the train from my seat and I looked back and no one else was responding. So what did that say to me? Well, after reflection, I realized that was for me in that time. And so what that told me, Asher and Claire, was that this thing called life, man, this thing is huge and it's powerful and it's awesome. And it's a roller coaster ride. But the sun that day gave me once again, like, wow, I had the opportunity to see something and feel something I've never felt before. It was such a powerful moment that it made me come into who I am to this day. And like I said, I'm that person now with a vision. I'm that person now with a mission that I want people to understand, like I said, that they do have options in their lives. And so, like I said, that's a victory that changed my trajectory. That's an experience that changed who I am as an individual.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that, Todd. And I saw Claire nodding her head over there. What are you thinking, Claire? What are your thoughts?
Just reminds me how, for me, that what I said and what I wrote in that chapter was that the grief, once I'd unwrapped the grief, I found unconditional love. Just 1 second, Bubby. Mummy's on a podcast. Go down the corridor. Okay. No, just go down to Daddy. There you go.
You want to join?
The the
He wants
babysitter
a
broke.
joy.
So yeah, so at the center of that package was this unconditional love, and I feel like I've been on this journey since then, right? Bobby,
Mhm.
down to the lounge, please, love. Down to the lounge. Because when you look out through that, it's like opening your eyes, right? Like Todd said, he opened his eyes, he saw the sun, the same sun that you see every day. But when you look through that highest frequency of unconditional love, you see something entirely different.
Mhm.
And if you can live your life through that, and that's the thing is like when I started to look inwards and I started to ask that question, how many people are walking around with literally their heads full of all the ways that they were battered down in childhood by their parents, by kids at school, by all of these flaws that you feel like you have, all of these limits that you feel like you have about yourself. But you take those away and then you look back out and life looks differently. The world looks differently. Opportunity looks differently. Actually, even tragedy looks differently as well, right? It's just so, so, so powerful. Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. I see you multitasking like a mom do most of the time.
Yeah,
Sorry
no,
about that. Woo,
No,
bloody
that's
mind start doing fireworks.
no, but I was just noticing how you went right back into your thought because normally if it was me, probably like, oh, I lost my thought there. But you went right back on cue. So it's that's tell me what kind of brain you have, what kind of how your thinking process works. So
And just quickly on that as well, so when we think about those voices, right, it's like the limiting beliefs. That's actually what I did following that tragedy and that's how the miracle frequency was born. I sat down and meditated. So I
mm,
forced myself to sit down 7 times a day for 7 minutes and engage myself in something that was kind of stillness. So whether it was some yoga or some breath work or just meditation, that's what I was actually doing. And it was just so beautiful to notice how those voices kind of dissipate, right? And then you have this beautiful connection to the earth. What is beyond those voices? It's connection to that solar circuit. It's connection to the earth, right? And there is only unconditional love. There is only good. The sun doesn't wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, I might shine on Todd today, but I'm not going to shine on Asher." That's
Mhm.
not true, right? The sun shines on all of us. It's just whether we choose to see it and receive it and to love on it and to have gratitude and appreciation. So yeah, I actually developed an app from there called the 7x7 method. So that other people, in these times of, okay, I know something needs to shift. I know something needs to change. I'm sick of seeking outside of myself for those solutions. And it's just something you can pull out of your pocket and actually have sounds, guidance to be in the moment and actually learn that you can let these voices go. You can let the stress go. You can let the hustle go. You can come back into control of your mind, but also reconnect the mind to the body and the mind to the heart, because your
mm.
heart is where your true power is, right?
Right.
One of my
Mm.
favorite quote is it says the longest journey a man has to travel is 14 inches
Yeah.
from his head to his heart, right? And oftentimes we don't realize how long that journey is when you was talking about the balancing back out the energy field.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this idea around silence. Like we're always speaking to silence. Like if you think about it, when I'm speaking, you guys are silent, right? So I'm speaking to silence. When you're speaking, I'm silent. Now you're always speaking to silence. So oftentimes your answers are pretty much most of the time in silence. So when we all learn to really speak to silence, we start figuring out, okay, I'm actually hearing myself now. And once you start hearing yourself, you start understanding yourself a little bit more and going to that place where, oh, I'm listening to my own voice, or I get to turn off those voice. It's very empowering. So when I was listening to you talk about that, that's what showed up for me, Claire. So what are your thoughts, Todd?
Well, again, when you say two things, silence and connection, um, because I think for a long time I was kind of like I didn't trust the silence.
Mm,
I didn't trust the quiet no more than I trust the dark. And and so those things in combination um scared me, as a kid and then even in parts of my adulthood. And so, but I think once you begin to trust the silence, then you form connection
mm,
with self. And so that's, so when you spoke about those two things, like I said, that's those two things that came to mind, silence and connection, because I think, thank God for that I can connect with Claire, and we can connect with Claire, even though she's in, New
New
Zealand.
Zealand.
Yeah, in Europe in the Northeast. But now we can see each other, but is it real connection? When I was with you in Miami this weekend, it was really good to feel that energy and shake your hand and touch. And I think that's just what we long for. We long for, human connection. We long for touch. And so when I was able to shake your hand and give you that, it was like, wow, I finally met Asher. And so I finally met him. Now, this right here serves a purpose, but at the same time, too, when we do make that connection with each other, that's some powerful stuff. And so once again, I'll go back to the like I said, the silence and the connection. That's what I was thinking of when I heard you guys speak on those.
Mm. You as you were speaking though, what showed up for me too was community.
Yeah.
Because that's what we kind of embraced when we was in Miami this weekend, was that community piece of it that everybody needs. And I realized that's something that I really go for.
I didn't
Really go
realize
for
that
community.
I didn't realize it until late in life, because I think I grew up playing music, and music can be a very vulnerable thing. It can be a very private thing.
Mm.
And so I spent a lot of time to myself. And so when I'm like in a creative moment, that's time to me. And so I grew up by myself, with myself. And so I didn't realize that the importance of community until really later in life, man.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Claire, question for you. When it comes to silence and community and victory, what are your thoughts combining those themes together?
Wow, what a question. So I think Todd's spot on. Like, I think people really do fear silence.
Mm.
And then it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna seek outside of myself. And maybe they'll seek people, community that is the wrong people and community, right? It's because they don't
Mm-hmm.
have that kind of inner security. Something that I noticed again, like when my marriage ended, was I actually resisted so like I felt really low, right? I felt really scared. I felt really sad. And I knew straight away, you need to sit down at that altar. You need to do your method. You need to do your 7 minutes. And I would
Mm-hmm.
lie there and like literally my head would be like, don't sit down there. Don't you dare sit down there in the silence, because what the hell's going to come up? Right?
Mhm.
What are you going to have to hear? What are you going to have to face? And that's what we're doing when we're busy and we're distracted in life and we're hanging with the wrong people and we're filling our cup from the outside in. But if you can reverse it and you can have the courage, it's like you said about the connection between the silence and the darkness,
Mm-hmm.
that's huge, because there's darkness within us.
Mhm.
I could say that it is a lot of my darkness that ended my marriage, and I had to sit in the silence and face that darkness to actually reveal the light, to reveal how all of those parts of myself that weren't coming through, that weren't in expression, that were maybe judged or criticized, they're all of who I am, and they're beautiful, And then take those qualities out and seek your community. Take the truth of you out and seek the people who align with your heart. That your expanded heart, because your heart has to expand enough to hold all of who you are, right? And we don't do that. We build walls up around our heart and we squash it down. And we have a lot of fear. And we have fear that it will get broken. And that's why we choose safety rather than connection. That's something this has been huge for me in the last 6 months with this marriage breakup, is where have I chosen safety and security over connection? Because when I connected to the earth, when the earth, when the divine mother, when whatever you want to call it, spirituality, God was what brought me through my victim situation to victory.
Mm-hmm.
I was then like, holy crap, like actually most of the connections in my world do not have that level of connection, do not have that unconditional love, do not have that, you know, feeling, oh, I just couldn't describe it. It was like deep soul happiness. And I craved connections like that with other people where it's beyond surface level, where you can allow yourself to be all of you and for that to be received, and then you receive it, you know, back as well. Because connection is so important, and true connection, authentic connection. This is where, again, with the work that I do in people's businesses, are you really bringing that through? Are you really stepping out as yourself? I love people who have podcasts because generally it's because they are, right? They've discovered something that they truly believe in, something that's so important. They're willing to go out there and put their voice out, be heard, be seen, and also face criticism, face judgment, face polarizing audience, because that's what we have to do. We have to be all of us. We were given light for that light to shine. The purpose of all enlightenment is just to freaking know yourself, right? Know yourself, but allow yourself to be all of that. Take that out into the world, risk having your heart broken to realize that actually, when you can get to that place where you're risking it to break, it won't break anymore because you've found wholeness. It's just so, so powerful. So, yeah, that was, you asked that question. I was like, that's a big question. How am I going to get that answer out?
No,
I'm buying Claire's book. You know that, right? I'm buying Claire's book I'm buying Claire's book when it comes out.
Oh yeah,
So I already have. So I actually, it was so beautiful. The publisher that published Victim to Victory, we got talking, and I'd written a manuscript in 2018, and I never published it. And I started talking about it. She's like, "You have to publish this book." I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Oh my God, you need to publish your story." And in 6 months, we did. We published my story. So this is my book.
Oh man, okay. There we go.
Yeah, Awaken Your Miracle Frequency.
Okay,
it is easier than you think to have it all. And yeah, I just am so passionate now about taking that story to people and saying, we don't have to push and force. We don't have to make it hard. You know, it's like things can be easy. You can, because we stop ourselves having it all, right? It's like, oh no, I can't have it all. There's so much stigma around that. And I think that's why we work too hard and we push too hard and we try and force people to be on the same page as us. And yeah.
I gotta ask you guys this one question here. Two about you guys. I'm gonna start with Claire and I'm gonna jump to Todd. Because when Claire was talking, that was showing up for me about interruption, being uninterrupted. So victory-wise, what would your life look like if you were uninterrupted? How much victorious would you be if your life you was uninterrupted by certain things that shows up unintentionally?
Is that for me or for Todd? Sorry.
I'm gonna start with you, then we'll go to Todd.
I think, honestly, I think there would be no flow in life if we weren't interrupted. I think the interruptions are actually synchronicity. I think if you can get to a place where you have switched on your miracle frequency, right, which you are beginning to step into your truth, live through your heart, unwrap that package of whatever, whether it's grief, guilt, shame, and know that at the center of it is the journey to unconditional love. The universe is going to bring you interruptions that you are meant to respond from or respond to from your heart rather than from your head, right? We've got this intelligence up here that is all the stuff that we know and all the stuff that we should do. And then in here, we've got the stuff that you would do. And so it's this invitation to step into more of yourself, to get onto that flow of life. There's this beautiful book, Michael Singer, I think, writes it, called The Surrender Experiment. And he just literally just keeps surrendering to life, right? To what life brings him. And so I believe that we can live a good life based on what we know and what we think, or we can open our hearts and we can actually start like hanging out. I call it the creative wave of chaos, where we're hanging out in what we don't know and what we don't know that we don't know. And life starts to get really exciting. You know, it's like these synchronicities flow in. You say yes where you might have said no. Your head might say no, but your heart says yes. And you start flowing down this river of the unknown. And yes, they might be seen as interruptions, but what if they're little divine whispers, you know, little nudges that can actually take you into a greater experience, your highest potential.
Same question for you, Todd. What would your life look like victoriously if it was uninterrupted by certain things that
Well, pretty much everything Claire said, it's like a ditto on
mm,
that. And I guess I'm so thankful for those interruptions. There's nothing that I'm always careful about what I judge or what I deem bad, wrong, right, good, or what have you. Uh, I look at more so purpose and what they play and how they play in my life. So I look at each situation, especially after I've gone through it. So it's easier to have that reflection and have something, positive come from it, when you're beyond it. But in the midst of it, it feels pure, like hell. And so, um, but when I do work past that, the there's nothing that I look back on now that I'm regretful for because this has led me to who I am, and I cannot deny that. I won't deny that. I will not deny that. And I think that's what we run from ourselves. We run from our past. I had a conversation today with a young lady who is a yoga instructor with grief recovery. So she uses yoga with helping people navigate through grief. And so yeah, and so the grief in their lives, it's a matter of these are real experiences for people, but learning how to navigate through those interruptions, learning how to navigate through those grief periods, those grieving periods. That's what it's about. It's about getting to the other side and having faith that, or hope, like we said earlier, that yes, it can happen and it will happen. And faith is another thing that I have. Um, I've always been an optimistic person, but I haven't always been faithful. And so faith is something that now it's like, wow, there's a certain knowing or knowingness, if that's even a word, that I am truly uh, I stand with now. So faith is another word, like I said, that I live by. But once again, the interruptions, going back to your question, I thank my interruptions because they've led me to who I am now.
no, the reason why I asked that question is because I'm noticing a lot of younger generation. They all want all green lights ahead, and not a lot of people want red lights. And when they
Mhm.
run into red lights, it creates this kind of chaos for them that they can't handle. And when you think about the interruptions in life, you realize that sometimes you can see it later on in life where you connect the dots, like, oh my God, that thing was for a reason, right? I'm glad that I sat there and I saw something I wouldn't have seen if I was moving. So sometimes we've kind of forget the wisdom in those interruptions or the wisdom in those red lights that create opportunities for us to really, transform ourselves in certain areas that we wouldn't have done without those red lights. Did that make any sense to you?
Mhm.
What are your thoughts, Claire?
It makes total sense. The original title of the book, which every single publisher hated, was Life Through a Lens, because that's literally what I did was look through the lens, look at the past through the lens of kind of hope, faith, wisdom. And I'm kind of emotional today. It's my wedding anniversary today. It would have been yeah, many years. I think 13 years.
Mm.
And it's like you can look back and you can have regret and you can say that is a loss. Or you can say exactly what Todd said, which did bring, a tear to my eye that this has created who I am. This has brought me to today. And I can walk forward with the wisdom, with it's just in January, I actually really reached a crisis in faith. And I had a period where I hit a brick wall, a black hole, and I faced some really deep suicidal thoughts. And that was so kind of challenging. That was a big interruption. As a mum of three, as a successful business owner, I had clients, had my children, I had so much to live for. And I just all of a sudden was like, what's the point in any of it? Right. And I was looking at these divine whispers and these kind of beautiful synchronicities and interruptions coming into my life. I was like, I can't handle anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't grow any bigger. I can't, listen to this soul's calling anymore. Follow these souls' path. And I didn't want to, and I had to really face that. And it was funny. I'm quite a spontaneous person, so I spent an evening in a very dark place, and then the next morning I decided to go and throw myself out of a plane. I literally walked in off the street into a skydiving place, tears rolling down my face, and I was like, "Can I jump
Wow.
out of a plane?" And they were like, "Yeah, when would you like to do that?" I was like, "Right now." And they're like, "Okay." And yeah, it was just a sniveling, snotty mess. And the guy who was jumping with me, I think he realized that, he just needed to hold space. And I went up in this plane and I actually said in my mind, like, if that chute doesn't open, I'm not meant to be here. But if it does, then okay, we're going to do this. And I had this beautiful moment, like free falling, 250 mile an hour or whatever it is. You're like free falling through the sky. I realized connection. I realized the mainframe that we're plugged into. I felt it so deeply. And I felt how it goes two ways, right? It goes two ways. We're plugged into it and it's plugged into us, and we have to keep moving. We don't have a choice, but we can have faith. That's actually ultimately all that we have, right? You think about it when you get to your deathbed. Do you want to sit there with all your regrets and fear of death? Or do you want to sit there in love, in appreciation of everything, like your movie? It's been your movie, every single experience, and you're the one writing the script because of how you choose to see things, right? And not have fear, have faith that it's just another transition. Everything that happens, whether it's a loss or a gain, it's a transition and it's a movement. It's a movement forwards. Yeah, and everything's a blessing, every single part.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Claire. That's very powerful. And I could see on Todd's face, you look mesmerized by what she just shared us now, Todd. Tell me
Well,
what you're
yeah,
thinking.
because I'm just impressed with Claire's story, and through her tears and through her, journey of, just today. And the part about connection is, and if I hope I'm saying it right, when she said we're plugged into it and it's plugged into us. And so what comes to mind is oneness. It's connection again, but being being aware that we're all one, that we are one. And I think it's something that we are taught either in our school system, our religious systems, that we're separate. And this separation tends to lead to anxieties of being alone and and being disconnected. And so the opposite, of course, of connection is, of course, disconnected. And I think so many of us feel disconnected. And so they don't feel what she was speaking about, Claire, in terms of being plugged into it and it being plugged into us. We feel disconnected. And so that is a powerful thing, years ago when I was going through my whole journey, I read a book called Conversations with God. And this book kind of like turned my whole mindset and heart set around when it comes to understanding who I am and what God means to me. And so it was a very different walk from that point on. But like I said, it was definitely understanding that no, we are not alone. So everything that I watch and listen to now, whenever I hear something like that, that we're not we're not supposed to be disconnected. We are we are connected, but we just don't realize it, or we're not aware of it. Whenever I hear someone like Claire's story, and watch a movie, when it comes to being connected, it just is like, wow, that's, I just love those stories. And so thanks again, Claire. You just really given me so much to think about today.
Hmm. When you was talking, what showed up for me was was this quote by, I think, Punjab Papa G says, happiness is permanent. It is always here. What comes and goes on happiness. And when you think about life, sometimes you're not real. When you talk about plugged in, like we're always plugged in. But what comes and go is that disconnection that we cause ourselves by not really being true to ourselves. So thinking through the lenses of happiness is permanent, it is always here. What comes and goes on happiness. What are your thoughts? What's some of your victories in your life that you can connect with that quote, Todd?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, because I've had a conversation with someone this week about happiness, that exact word, and so I don't really necessarily seek happiness as much as I seek joy and peace, and so it's the joy and peace that I really seek. Joy to me and peace to me is that long-term thing. Happiness can be a momentary thing. Uh, Such as, when I get results for a client, that's a matter of, that's happiness. I'm satisfied. But me on the mission and having a purpose in life is joy. And that contributes to my peace. And once again, when I hear people that don't have hope, that don't have a sense of how to get to a place called peace, a lot of times their purpose is missing. And so, like I said, to me, happiness is that fleeting thing. And there have been a lot of those moments of happiness, like I said, getting a client's results, taking my wife out to dinner and having, it's just an awesome time with her. And just those types of things.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna pose the same thing to you, Claire. The same quote, happiness is permanent. It is always here. What comes and goes on happiness. When you think about your journey, jumping on the aircraft. I mean, I used to do that actually. I used to jump on a plane when I was in the military too, paratrooper, but not the same as jumping out from that height you were jumping out of. But tying that one quote to your story about happiness and joy, as Todd say, what are your thoughts on those?
Very, very much like Todd. So something that people always say to me is like, and literally everybody says it, Claire, I love your energy. Because they've seen me. I mean, I think I'm 42, maybe. I can't count. I stopped counting. So they've seen me run at life, right? That's who I've been, somebody who just runs at life. I was a competitive kickboxer, and I was always trying to win because it felt good, right? It felt good to get your arms raised in that ring. It felt good to get the money in the business. It felt good. Like I realized when I jumped out that plane, it's like you can't live your life like that anymore, because there will be like this kind of up and down, the polarity, because the polarity, the duality comes, it is separation. It comes from projection of what we think is good and bad. And actually, I sort of began this journey of just loving all of it, which in some ways felt like my energy flatlined a little bit, right? It's like kind of just came down from these high peaks and these low lows to just kind of floating. But I feel like it's really important to just love, like whether it's good or bad, just love, and then see what kind of, because happiness is a feeling, isn't it? What comes from that. But I feel like there's this I think she's a poet, and she made it into her song that I think she might be called Kay something or other, and she talks about like she's got this very like English accent, right? Really strong English accent, and happiness has been something that's sold. And it kind of is. Like if we look at the media and we look at the school system, like you mentioned, I think what you said about the schooling and these kids coming out and being disillusioned and then being just lost when stuff happens to them in life. They're looking for all the green lights because that's what we're being sold. We're not being taught to come within ourselves and actually to start to sort of, yeah, operate from that place of just love. Just love. Like, what does it feel like when we don't have to win, when we don't have to win over, when we don't have to overcome, when we don't have to over anything? You know, it's like, it's quite a deep conversation, right? Where is it in my programming that pulls through this flat line? Like, you know, like to kind of feel like it is a depression rather than just an experience. Like, you know, because I'm no longer kind of chasing and running and having this high energy. Because the thing is that high energy runs out. You're more likely to have the fall from that height, right? Because your body can't run at that speed. And that's what I feel like the universe has taught me a few times. And it's a lesson that I didn't listen to.
Mhm.
And it's actually what I tried to do out of my marriage breakup too, was like run. Like run at this high speed of, okay, you know, in this high energy, this good energy, like, but it was denial. Like I was in this denial and I wasn't listening to my heartbreak and my body. I think part of what led me to that really dark place was actually like a really deep survival mode. Like my adrenaline just ran out and my body started to fail on me and I had like an adrenal fatigue and an exhaustion. And all my body was asking me to do was to feel again, right? Feel all of it, all the spectrum without the projection of good and bad.
Hmm.
Todd's
Wow.
like nodding over here.
No,
Like,
that was very powerful. That was very powerful. And you know what shows up for me too? You guys understand electricity, right? And electricity, you need a positive and a negative to really create electricity. And I was thinking about the binary tension you just mentioned just now about you need the negative and the positive. Without that spark, that binary tension, we won't have that spark. So sometimes we face those things, not a red light, green light, so forth and so on, without us connecting, like realizing that we need both swing of the pendulum. We need both negative and positive. We need both binary tension between both to kind of like create the spark we need to have that electrifying moment for ourselves. And I would just listen to your conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, all those things happen. You need the good and the bad. All those things play a part in life. And without that binary tension, a lot of us won't come alive.
Mhm.
And you need that to come alive. What are your thoughts, Todd?
I think, how do you know left if you never experienced right? You
Mm,
know, how do you know up if you've never been down? Much needed polarities in life in order for us to know who we really are and for us to remember, let me say, who we are. Um, and so that's the when you were speaking about that's what came to mind. But also, when Claire was speaking, we live in a society of doers. Do. We're always doing, but we are not taught to be. And being is where we should be coming from. We should, you know, we never stop to just be. We're always in the moment of doing. And that's something that I had to really come into, especially when I went through my divorce too. Claire, for my first marriage, I went through a whole year before anyone knew I was divorced. No, my parents didn't know. No one knew because I was so busy running. You know, I was so busy running from who, you know, the embarrassment, the humility, you know, humiliation of it all, from myself, the failure mind. I was like, and like I said, until I hit that brick wall, it was like, I can't do this anymore. So my best friend at that point in time, like I said, a year had gone, and he was wondering why he had never seen my wife like in a whole year, my ex-wife in a whole year. And so it was like when I told him, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have something to tell you. And he was like, what's going on? It's like, well, I've been divorced for a year. And it shocked him, it rocked him, you know,
mm,
because he knew my ex-wife and it just caught him way off guard. But like I said, I was so busy hiding and running away from this whole thing until one day I couldn't do it anymore. And then that's when I had to let the cat out the bag. But once again, highs and lows, lefts, rights, ups, downs, polarities of life. I love them all now. I respect them all. It's that place, like Claire said, it's coming from that place of love. And you know, when I can sit on a ground, or can lie on the ground and look up at the blue sky and see nothing but blue sky. That's a beautiful thing to me. That's an amazing vision of view, observation. And so I pretty much put all of that into one thing now and call it love. It's like you say, just, just it's love. And so that's how I look at life. That's how I live life now.
Wow. So we're gonna close on this being and doing piece, because I think we started on this a little bit when it comes to victories, because you was talking about doing the doing. I have two philosophies that I call them: the philosophy in doing, PhD, and the philosophy in being, the PhB. And after I retired from the military, I realized I came from a doing organization. We just keep doing from one thing to the next thing. My entire life was based on that same philosophy, a lot of doing. But after I retired from the military, I had a lot of time to sit back and think about me, my PhD now. I had to fall back into that space, that philosophy, and it wasn't comfortable because I wasn't used to doing it. I wasn't used to being me in a certain way. I was with a plan, I execute the mission. So now he was talking about, I was like, oh my God, I realized that no, later on in life, I'm start really appreciating the being piece. Like really go get my certification in my PhD status, because I needed that part of my life because I wasn't doing it. I wasn't getting that thing in me before. So thinking about the PhD and the PhD, Claire, what are your thoughts on that?
It's so relevant. Like I say, like, I mean, you imagine it. I work with people who are trying to build multi six-figure, seven-figure businesses. Like, which PH do you think they're leaning on? Their PhD, right? Are going to do everything with no fulfillment ultimately, with no, and again, health starts to suffer. It's like they look at me and they're like, oh, how does she have time to go to the gym? How does she have time to spend 2 hours walking in a forest every day? Like they're starting to look and say, well, I don't have time for this stuff. I don't have time to be. But if we can't be, then we're going to start to suffer all sort of, stress symptoms. But I think the thing in your mind is even worse, right? It's just like you stop creating from your heart space and you don't experience your highest potential. You don't experience the fullest experience of life. And something that I'm loving to share, and I think it's kind of, maybe comes out of the box for some of these clients that come to me, is like the connection to nature, right? You think about that sun rising. Well, for the sun to rise, the moon has to rise, right? So you think about the moon doesn't just rise full like the sun every day. The moon actually rises in its own phases. So it begins actually just a slither of moon, and it has to come to this full illumination of the full moon, which takes some time, right? And so I use this analogy of nature a lot. It's like, how can we just start to meet life as it's coming to us, to have that illumination each cycle, each season, each cycle of life? How can we start to believe that the sun is shining on all of us? And if we create the right environment, sleep, food, loving on ourselves, meditation, then we're going to thrive like everything in the ecosystem. We are part of the ecosystem. Everything in nature is connected to itself, and everything in nature is in balance. It is in a natural order. Like, you don't see the fire fighting out of the soil. Like, I'm coming up, I'm coming to get that sun. Whoa, it's shouting, it's screaming at all the other flowers, go away, because I need this bit of sun. Like, it's just naturally ordered, right? It's just balanced. But it also endures the chaos too. A flower will endure the storm. You see the trees bending in the wind beautifully in the hurricane, right? It's like you can become part of nature. And you can use this analogy of balance in your own life and let go. It's like we have to just start in every moment, just surrendering, letting go to the PhD, believing that it is as important as the PhD, that is the certification that we need to learn. And I really appreciate what you're saying and sharing, like coming out of that sort of environment, the identity, the uniform, the rigorous routines and things like that. It's like, where were you in that? You were lost. But actually, we've all been lost too, because we're shoved out of the womb into life, given this name, given this role, shoved into school, put in our uniforms, put on the treadmill all the way along, right? It's like sometimes it's not until something that makes you a victim happens that you get a chance to stop, right? And that might come, like I say, it's just like, I cannot move forward anymore. Like, how can we be grateful for the opportunity to take a breath? And actually, what I've learned is that we get that opportunity every single day, right? The minute that you slow down your breath, you slow down the pace of life. So if we do take that moment to be and to breathe in, it's just everything changes. Everything changes. That's how we start bending reality, because we can open our eyes with love and love everything that we see suddenly. You know, sometimes I even just walk out of my lounge where I want to throttle every single one of my children, come down, shut my eyes, breathe, and I go out and I'm like, oh my God, I just love them so much, right? Everything changes with that breath. And we can start to live our life like that, and we can start to run our businesses like that, because what comes out of that is people like you, right? On purpose, people like Todd on purpose, sharing their light, sharing their wisdom, using their voices, losing the inhibitions. It's powerful.
And that was magical as well. Todd, oh, we gotta wrap up.
Yeah.
Any thoughts you want to share to close out after what Clare has
I'm
shared?
just I'm just thankful.
What's your
Today
biggest
was,
takeaway? Yeah.
yeah, so today was really a day of I would say, because I had a podcast also, and to, like I said, just speaking with a young lady who is a yoga instructor who helps people through grief, and grief comes in a lot of different ways, a lot of different forms. It can be the loss of identity. I didn't think about that until earlier, but now we're speaking about that again to a degree, to a certain degree, and so it's like, wow, these this all coming into place right now. It's like, wow, okay, today was purposeful. I needed to be here for this reason today, and I needed to hear that message from her this morning, and so I'm thankful for that. But the being and the doing and the letting go, what I always say is just stop. My wife loves to look up at the stars and connect in that way. I love that also. I get my energy from nature, I think. I'll go into a park and I'll just look up at the sun and look up at the blue skies and just be so elated and so at peace and so much at joy. And I can find my happiness in that. So thank you so much, Asher. Claire, I am so looking forward to reconnecting with you, and for having me, Asher, for having me on today.
And one more thing. So if anybody got to reach you, if they don't catch you on the media, social media, so forth, what can they connect with you, Todd?
But they can always come to my website, toddshealthzone.com. And I have a new campaign for people that are 50 and above, called Well Beyond 50. And they can always connect with me through that means also. That means that website too.
Wow. And same for you, Claire. If they gotta connect with you outside of social media, how can they reach you?
Well, I do have a website. But I would say actually social media is the best place, because it's where I'm active. And I have a Shorby link. So shor.by/ the Millionaire Charwoman. And the Millionaire Charwoman is where you find me on all the socials as well. And I've just got a bunch of resources for people to get their PHB. So definitely check it out, and like the app, like the book, really, yeah. If anything has resonated, I think it would be really helpful. That's definitely my purpose in life, I think. So
What was the name of your
check it
book
out.
again?
It's called Awaken Your Miracle Frequency. It's easier than you think to have it all. So there's a link through on that Shorby link. I can give you the link, Asher, if you want to put it with the show credentials. And yeah, you can get a digital book for $7.99. So it's nothing. And there's a bunch of bonuses on there as well, like breath work and meditation and all sorts of things to help
Thank
slow
you.
down and surrender.
Todd, yeah. Todd, you got a book too, right? If I'm not...
Yeah. My book is No Wonder We're Fat. That's the
Say
name of
again?
it.
Oh,
No Wonder
wow.
We're Fat.
No wonder we're fat.
And how to get off the weight loss roller coaster. that's really what it's about, how to stop the
that.
confusion. So yeah.
Okay. All right, team. If you guys are watching this live, just go ahead and put hashtag live in the comment section. If you watch this on replay, hashtag replay. But you definitely tune in to Pandora's Awareness podcast. We collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. And today you've got plenty of wisdom from Todd and Claire. Claire has definitely made it clear to us how powerful her voice is. And Todd definitely, smudge us on the cheek, right? Get us ready. So any last word, Todd or Claire, before we close out?
Well, I think you're both like a sale for your own stuff. Todd, I would never have ever put you above 50. And Asher, when you were talking about, this whole, these youngsters, I was like, hang on, isn't he like 21? So whatever you're both doing it, you're doing it well.
Thank you.
Massive sell. Asher, if you're working with Todd already, it's like, yeah, go get their stuff because you're just beaming lights of health, the pair of you, and youth. It's beautiful. I love it. Your energy is just so beautiful.
57.
Thank
57
you.
now.
Wow.
Whoa.
57.
I love it.
57. I'm only
Love
44.
it.
Todd, you crushing it, Todd. I'm only 44.
Thanks, guys.
What? Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness me. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's American living. I'm not even like,
Product of the product, right? And
Yeah,
it's
product of the
everything.
product.
It's the mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, we
But
Love
you know
it.
something. But something I realized too is that like the personal development, self-development, spiritual stuff. When you do a lot of stuff, it really works on your youth. I'm noticing that a lot of folks that I'm noticing that really, really powerful mentally are the folks that it shows in their body. I'm like, so I started really getting magnetized to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You have to, because you wear your problems. We wear our problems. So yeah.
Okay, well, I am going to stop the live stream now. Hold on, let me go here. Where is